Ever since the Industrial Revolution, society's use of natural resources has skyrocketed. All around the world, and especially in the United States, social consequences have risen in response to the corporational structures that continue to increase and abuse natural resource extraction. For many people, this means that multi-billion-dollar businesses bought community-owned land, increased pollution on the land, in the water, and in the air, and decreased the overall quality of life for the oppressed. This social problem of environmental degradation has led to even greater inequalities experienced by members of the same society that first created this disparity. In addition to the Industrial Revolution, this nation was founded on values encouraging racism and classism, both of which are still practiced today. On a daily basis, internal biases and external structures are adopted to exclude members of society. The combination of poor environmental quality along with societal practices of exclusion based on race makes for an opportune chance for discrimination. This Pecha Kucha explores the mechanisms in which the innate power of the land, through its value and its resources, has been seized by corporations who likely fund politicians, which continually contributes to the environmental injustices experienced by racial minorities and low-income communities. This work seeks to explain how this country's socially constructed ideas around racism and classism create a path of least resistance towards environmental injustice, where the colored and the poor encounter much more pollution. This work also offers potential solutions for society to implement nationwide. To establish a relationship between these social factors and environmental inequality as a social problem, Perlin, Setzer, Creason, and Sexton analyzed the distribution of industrial air emissions by income and race. They found 46% of the black population lived within the respective regions with the highest number of industrial air polluters in the United States. Conversely, only half of the Asian population and one-third of the Hispanic population live in regions with few factories threatening the quality of air. The industrial factories of these major corporations create externalities that force oppressed populations to live in proximity to toxic and life-threatening material due to additional social structures, which creates this path of least resistance. According to Downey and Hawkins' review, increases in neighborhood and household income levels are more strongly associated with declining toxic concentration levels in black neighborhoods and households compared to those in white neighborhoods and households. For example, blacks with income between $50,000 and $60,000 live in neighborhoods that are, on average, more polluted compared to the average white neighborhoods, where household income resides below $10,000. Others may argue that higher household income means that families are automatically more protected from exposure of environmental hazards. However, this assumption ignores the racial identity associated with social status and well-being. This disparity in household income levels perpetuates environmental inequality due to the inclination of structures such as housing markets, banking loans, and employment opportunities that are more inclined to accommodate the poorer white population rather than the richer black population. The primary cause of this inequality can be credited to the power and profit-driven multinational corporations, who ultimately have significant control over the political state of the U.S. Although we often think that these huge businesses maintain factories overseas in underdeveloped countries, this injustice also happens in America, where detrimental repercussions are felt and seen all around us. Ayero and Swiston conducted an ethnographic research study about the experience and livelihood of the repercussions in underserved communities. They found that Shell and Coca-Cola facilities in Latin America were associated with increased levels of trash, deep resentment towards these companies from those who were established on the land before, and an overwhelming increase in the homeless population. Although these facilities produce an exponential amount of externalities through air emissions, effluent discharge, and potential radiation, their surface-level solutions are meaningless band-aids to the communities in which they invade, ultimately leading to complete distrust and questionable ethics associated with the corporations. Residents were more inclined to label these factories as negative attributes to their daily lives. This obvious social inequality is misrepresentative of the nation's belief in individual freedom and justice for all mankind. Statewide efforts have attempted to address this inequality through new policies geared towards residential and neighborhood advocacy. According to Pastor Jr., SAD, and HIP, California has taken progressive measures to ensure environmental justice through the creation of a task force associated in the Southern California Air Quality Management District, which soon led to the creation of another task force in the statewide Office of Policy Research. In terms of environmental justice and institutionally oppressed communities, California enacted the 1986 Tanner Act, which developed local committees in these communities that serve to discourage and limit the expansion of toxic storage and disposal facilities in proximal distance. However, Pastor Jr. and his team argue that this is not enough to combat the overwhelming institutional problem. Instead, he suggests that these communities be built from members living within the oppressed neighborhoods, which will more likely lead to empowered advocates as well as progression towards equality. The environment is home to all of us, as it provides society with food, homes, and the experience of life. However, these experiences are often inequitable due to social constructions of race, class, and justice. In order to truly progress as a society, structural changes that include underrepresented voices are needed to take action and promote environmental justice and equality for all.